In this video, I want to share with you 16 different ways to make money in property. So my name's Simon Zutshi. I've been investing in property since 1995 and teaching people just like you how to become successful investors since 2003. I'm the author of Property Magic, the Amazon #1 property bestseller, and I'm the founder of the Property Investors Network. Now, recently, someone asked me, Simon, how many different property investing strategies are there? And to be honest, off the top of my head, I didn't know. So I sat down with a piece of paper and I started writing out what I think are the core strategies. Now, there are lots of different ways, probably hundreds of ways of making money from property, but I think there are probably 16 core strategies. And in this video, I'm going to mention what each of they are. In fact, I've actually got a complimentary download for you. So there's a link below this video. If you click on this link, you could just fill in the details and get access to a PDF document that has all of these on there. I think it's going to be really valuable for you. So there are some strategies that are commercial, there are some that are residential, and there are some that can be commercial and residential. So to go through each of them in turn. Let's start first of all residential. Probably the most basic strategy that you can do is a single let property. That's a house or an apartment you rent out on one contract. And it could be to an individual, it could be to a couple, or it could be to a family. And it's what we call a buy-to-let single let property. Okay, that's the most basic. The tenants, they pay all the bills. You look after the maintenance and the insurance, you might have management fees, but it's a very simple, very passive strategy. The equivalent to that in commercial property is where you have a single unit that you rent out. It might be a shop, it might be a restaurant, it might be an office, it might be a doctor's surgery, it might be a warehouse. We rent it to one tenant. Now, the big difference between commercial and residential is in commercial, you tend to have longer leases, and also the tenant is in charge of the maintenance and the insurance of their building. So actually commercial property is seen as a more passive form of investing, but they are very, very similar. One tenant, nice and easy. Now, coming back to residential property, the next strategy I want to give you, number 3, is what we call a BRRRR. It's where you buy a property, you refurbish that property, so you buy a property that's in not such a good condition, you improve the quality by refurbishment, you then refinance because you've increased the value, and then you take the money out and you rent the property, so you don't sell it, you rent it out, and you go and buy another one and do the same thing again. So it's BRRR, buy, refurbish, refinance, rent, rinse and repeat, okay? It's a great strategy to quickly build up your property portfolio. Now, strategy number 4 is similar to number 3, but instead of holding on to the property and renting it out, you flip it on as a profit. So what you do is you buy a property that often needs some work doing to it, you add value, and then you sell it on to someone else who might have it as a home or as an investment, and you make a nice profit from that property. It can be a very profitable strategy, flipping property. The only problem I have with that is that once you sell that property, it's never going to make you any more money. You can make some really good money doing it, but you're never going to make anything else from that. And so really, what you want is to hold property long term and get the rental income as well as the capital growth. So that's my opinion. Then the next one, number 5, is again, in residential, getting a bit more advanced, where maybe you take a building, a house, and you convert it into a number of smaller units, smaller apartments. Now, that kind of conversion work is quite a lot of work to be done, and building costs are quite high at the moment. You need to know what you're doing, but it can be very profitable. I've done a number of conversions like that, and then you can either sell the individual units or obviously you can rent them out. That's strategy number 5. Now, strategy number 6 is a version of that, but number 6 is what we call freehold to leasehold title split. This is where you take a property where someone else has already created the individual units, and they've left it as one freehold because to rent it out, they don't need to create leases. Why would they spend money they don't need to spend? And then after a period of time, they decide to sell that. So they're selling a freehold building that is already created into individual self-contained units. What you do is you get a solicitor to create the leases, and then often the value of all those leasehold properties added up is more than what you actually buy the property for in the first place. So you're creating instant equity. It's an amazing strategy. Then strategy number 7 kind of sits between residential and commercial because it can be either. It's houses of multiple occupation. So you're taking a house, you're renting out individual rooms. If it's a smaller one, it's seen more as a residential property, 6 or less rooms. If it's got 7 or more rooms, it's seen more as a commercial property and will be funded through commercial finance. It's a very, very profitable strategy, one of the strategies that most of my students like doing because it makes so much money. You could also do a similar thing within commercial property. You could take an office block, for example, and break it into smaller units and rent out the smaller units on a flexible basis to small businesses. So it's kind of an HMO, but in commercial property. Or you could take a big warehouse and split it into smaller units. Or you could take a shop and have little concessions. So this is a concept that's exactly the same as HMO, but you're getting multiple streams of income from the one building. That's strategy number 8. Strategy number 9, again, sits in the middle of residential commercial. It's called a planning uplift. It's where you find a property or a piece of land and you add value by gaining planning permission to change or add or convert it into something else. It can be very, very profitable. Then strategy number 10 really is where you take a commercial building, like an office or a shop, and you convert it into residential. So commercial to residential conversion. It's very attractive to a lot of people. You can make a lot of money doing it, but by the way, you can also lose money if you get it wrong. And I think it's not a good strategy if you want to get cash flow because it doesn't give you cash. In fact, it swallows your cash for a period of time until you then sell or rent out and refinance the units. Then also you can go the other way. You can go from residential into commercial. I'm sure you've seen doctors' surgeries, accountants' offices, solicitors' offices that were once residential homes and they've been converted into offices. Not very common these days. It's more profitable normally to go from commercial to residential, but I just wanted to share it as a strategy. It's worked in the past, turning in some cases residential into commercial property. Then number 12 is where you have new build properties. This is where you have a piece of land, you're doing a greenfield site, or maybe a piece of land with a building on it, you knock the building down and you put a brand new development there. This can be something you're gonna buy to rent, build to rent, so you build it and you retain it, or it could be build to sell, you've got to sell on for a profit. That's strategy number 12. Strategy number 13 is what's called an assisted sale. So this is where you help someone actually sell property. You're not going to buy it yourself. You help them sell it. You package it up in a way that's attractive to other investors. Great, powerful strategy. Number 14 is deal sourcing. So once you get good, and this again can sit between residential and commercial. This could be deal sourcing for commercial properties, could be residential, but you're finding great property deals. Now, by the way, when you learn how to find great property deals, you should keep the very best ones for yourself. But if you're really good, you're finding lots of deals, there'll be more than you can possibly do. As the ones you don't want, you can package up and sell onto other people. That's what deal sourcing is, and it's a great way. Many people start by deal sourcing to build up deposits for the ones they want to keep. Or even if you're an experienced investor and you're finding lots of deals, rather than just focusing on the ones you want, why not do some of the ones that don't work for you and get paid great fees? Obviously, they've got to be good deals to be able to get paid fees, but it can work really, really well. Then number 15 is serviced accommodation. Now this is a very powerful strategy. It's where you take property and you rent it out very short term. Most properties you have residential, you're going to have 6-month contract. Commercial property, you might have years and years in a commercial lease. But serviced accommodation is where you take a property, you're renting it maybe for a couple of days or for a week at a time. You get a much higher rent, but you don't get the same level of occupancy. You might get about 70% occupancy, that's what you should aim for. And when you're doing your numbers, you want to make sure that you get at least 50%, and at 50% it must make money, otherwise it's not a good deal. And that really sits in residential and commercial, because again, it could be residential property that you're using, could be commercial, works really well. So I think hotels fit into that category as well. And then finally, back on the commercial side, is larger buildings such as care homes, student blocks, etc., which are really kind of bigger institutional kind of investments. So those are the 16 core strategies. I think there's a bit of overlap between them, but fundamentally that's it. Now you might be thinking, well, hang on, what about things like rent to rent? What about things like purchase option? Well, those aren't strategies per se. Those are more tools, they're business models that can be used in conjunction with a number of these different strategies. So the next video I'm gonna put out on this YouTube channel is about the 6 core creative finance business models, in which I'm going to talk about rent to rent and purchase lease options, etc. So I think you get massive value from that as well. If you've liked this video, please like it. If you've got a question about any of those strategies, please put it in the comments below. I'll comment and answer as many as I can. Maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Click the bell icon. If you like this, you'll get notified about all the videos that come out. I release at least 1 or 2 brand new videos, sometimes just content like this, sometimes interviews with successful investors. And that's really great because you get inspired by what other people have done as well. And remember, if you want to get a copy of these 16 core strategies laid out on a nice flowchart, simply go to the link below, click there, register, and we'll email that to you so you've got it, so you can really get clear and focus on what property investing strategy might be right for you. So I do hope that's been useful. Again, please like, comment below, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video when I'm going to talk about the 6 creative finance business models. I'll see you on the next video. I do hope you got massive value from watching this YouTube video. I'd encourage you to click on the link below to come and do the online training with me. And I've got another video lined up for you, which I think is also going to be really useful, that you should watch once you've registered for the online training with me. So invest with knowledge, invest with skill. I'll see you very soon.